Yeah, I love to talk, film, discuss, critique.
The box. You opened it. We came.
Yes, we did. What up? What's happening, everybody? Welcome back to Blood Splatter Chatter here on a Thursday night to talk about one of the most celebrated films of all time. One of the most celebrated horror films? I don't know. We'll discuss. We'll debate. We're doing Silence of the Lambs tonight. This is Stu's pick, my brother from another. What up, Stu?
What up? What up? Man, thank you for finally giving this one a chance. I feel like this is my redemption for Red Dragon, so I appreciate you guys obliging me and watching this classic with me.
I'll be honest. I was excited for Red Dragon at first. Like back in the day, I think it came out to decent reviews. I think it probably aged a little bad, but I remember being excited. I was like, Stu chose Red Dragon? Hell yeah. But had we not rewatched it, I wouldn't have known the truth about it. So it's like, you're opening my eyes.
Yes. I feel like my experience is the exact same as yours, brother. Yeah.
Well, as we go, I'm trying to start I'm like, all right, I'm going to jump into the intro part, do my little fun facts and set it up. Where are my notes? My notes are non-existent on my computer. It says notes, no notes. You have no notes. Like, bro, I got a lot of fucking notes. So I'll go off the dome. So this one, like, kind of one of the different things I want to talk about is this a horror movie or not? It's one of the most ride the line thriller horror action, kind of things, not action, but thriller or horror of any movie. Like Seven, I think is the one that it falls over. It's pretty easy for me to say Seven, not a horror movie. This one rides that line. Like Black Swan is another one. Looking up lists of movies that ride the line, Black Swan to me is a horror movie through and through. Jaws is another one that's like that. Like there's 3/4 of that movie that's a horror movie. Then it's an action adventure under the big blue seas or under the blue sky by the end. So, and I like those movies. This is one we've talked about a handful of movies recently. Lynk, I know we did on Sunday, movies that ride that line of a bunch of different genres. And this one does it more successfully than most. So successfully, in fact, that it's one of only 3 movies that have won the big 5 at the Oscars, being, and this is where I probably wish I had my notes, but I think I got it. Best director, best picture, best male actor with Anthony Hopkins, best female lead with Clarice, why am I forgetting her name? Jodie Foster.
Yeah.
And best adapted screenplay from Ted Talley. Of course, this is adapted from the book Silence of the Lambs by Thomas Harris. So I think I got all that down.
And it's ironic, like with Gene Hackman's death, because he was supposedly like one of the ones who was going to produce it. He's the one who commissioned Ted Talley to write the screenplay. Yeah, he was in after Talley, I guess, produced the screenplay. It was too violent for him, and he pulled out. But he was financing, I think, half of the deal as well. Like he.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So it's kind of ironic. R.I.P. to Gene Hackman.
Along those lines of things that almost were, I second that. A lot of mystery behind there. I'm waiting for News Day 2 or 3 on that. At first, they're like, oh, his wife passed away too. I'm like, oh, that's sad. I'm like, she was 30 years younger. I'm like, oh, that's suspicious. And their dog. But anyway,
and they threw the dog in, bro.
I digress. But along those lines of what could have been was that Michelle Pfeiffer was the first choice for Clarice Starling, which is interesting. Jonathan Demme, the director, had worked with her on a previous film. And I haven't seen any of his prior work that he did before this.
What was it? Is it like that Living with the Mafia or some shit like that?
I'm not sure. I know what you're talking about, but I'm not sure. Do you know, Stu?
No, what I know him best for is this, of course, and then Stop Making Sense, the Talking Heads. Music documentary. It's one of the best live music performance documentary films or whatever you want to call it that I've ever seen, dude. That it's hypnotizing. That's David Byrne in the big giant suit and all that. It's just an incredible concert film.
And by the way, Steph, you are right. It was Married to the Mob. That's what Pfeiffer was in. He did something wild. He had this like I don't know what to call them. When I was reading
He's
about him on
diverse.
Wikipedia, they gave it like some weird, like quirky type of movie that he was making, but they're all like comedy elements with like other elements mixed in with them, like an action or a thriller, but kind of goofy and more fun 80s style flicks.
Yeah, this
Before he did
definitely seemed like something he was when he took the job on. He was not like accustomed to doing or really specifically
Before,
like wanted to do. But yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know. I saw some interview where he said, deep down, every director secretly wants to make a film that scares the shit out of everybody. And I think, like, speaking to what you said about is it horror or not and all that, I think it's violent in all the right ways and like the spots where it needs to be and how to qualify. It's not like violent in the traditional horror gory sense, I would say, but
it's elevated.
It's definitely effective, but it's scary. You know what I mean? It's scary and it's menacing, and it's the way it's shot sometimes from like a point of view angle is just like really immersive. So I don't know. It works on a lot of levels with the fear and that way. I think one of his strengths is that it kind of, well, to my knowledge, it was like one of the first films to expose like serial killers aren't this social outcast that you can spot them from a mile away. They're oftentimes very charming, like the person that that lives next door to you type shit, and that kind of like I think that because it came out around the time with the Jeffrey Dahmer shit, and he was like very charming and shit, well composed. So I think there was like a lot of association with that kind of put like this real tangible fear as opposed to like some supernatural fucking slasher, some shit like that. Yeah.
Well, that's one of the things. Go ahead, Stu.
No, I like just to speak to what Lynk is saying, like how they brought in homeboy working for the FBI's behavioral science unit, you know what I mean, and like profiling, trying to catch killers, and that way it reminded me of like shows like Mindhunter, and when the department was like kind of focusing on that era when the department was forming in the in the similar way that he was sending Clarice out to interview these serial killers, and kind of gain knowledge from them. Like I saw similarities in that, so that was cool. Like, and I've always been fascinated about the formation of that unit and how America's love affair with serial killers kind of got integrated, in a legal law enforcement sense.
Serial killers just for whatever reason they're so interesting. Like you feel dirty watching documentaries about them, but there's something so intriguing about them. And this is just doing research before we got rolling. Honestly, I had heard that this was loosely, but it gets thrown around as a character that was loosely based on Ed Gein. And Ed Gein, I think he was from Wisconsin, and Anthony Hop. Why can't I get any names right today? The dude Bates, fucking what is Bates' first name from Psycho?
Norman
Bates. Thank you.
Yeah.
Norman Bates, loosely based on him. Leatherface and Texas Chainsaw, like The Family, loosely based on him. Basically, anytime you have someone cutting skin off of somebody and wearing it, it's kind of based on Ed Gein. But the ones that I didn't know, and luckily all of a sudden I do have my notes, is Bundy. Like we met, Bundy's the one that was the charismatic killer. With
he would pretend that he had a
and he would pretend he had a busted arm.
And he had his car. He had his car tricked out too. Some type of manner with the locks or something that like once they got in, I think he used to like drop the seat and then attack them or something like that. So like he had all sorts. And I think we all know that infamous story of him getting pulled over and like he literally had like the how to become a serial killer starter set with him, like duct tape, a mask, like a shovel, like everything you could need to kill and bury it, dispose of a body. Yeah, and they still let him go.
Wow. There's another one that I hadn't heard of. There's two of them that I hadn't heard of them. One is just Gary Heidnik. That's the inspiration for the pit in the basement. It's kind of just he took little elements from all these different ones. The one that I hadn't heard of, that I had to do a little bit more research and verify, but it seems to be true, that Thomas Harris would, like in the 60s, he was working as a reporter and he went to this Mexican jail and he was interviewing this one dude and he met the doctor in the jail and the doctor was actually a prisoner. So they just like found this really smart doctor prisoner and made him the prison doctor. And he was like this sophisticated, suave guy that was known for slicing people up and a lot of the stuff that Hannibal Lecter is known from. His name, Alfred Bali Trevino, that's pretty cool. I saw a couple different things that they didn't list him, and then I saw a couple that did, and it seems to be like that is true, but it wasn't information that was everywhere.
I like how it's like they pulled little different pieces from each one. You know, it's cool. I like that element of it.
And the other thing I wanted to mention is Roger Corman. Just another guy, man. Roger Corman, known for just making B movies that a lot of people wouldn't, you know what I mean? They're certainly not elevated. They're not along these lines, but he gave so many different people that went on to have such huge careers their start.
Yeah.
And Jonathan Demme came through him, Scorsese, amongst a bunch of others that I'm
Jack Nicholson.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Dude, you know what? Honestly, one we forgot that like Buffalo Bill probably would have been friends with is Dahmer. I feel like they're both like, you know, gay men, or, you know, Bill's a transsexual or whatever, or wants to be.
Nobody knows what Bill is. Bill don't even know what he is.
Right? Exactly.
And personally, I'm afraid to even guess.
They're in the Midwest, you know, like I feel like they're kind of like kindred spirits in a certain way. Like, I don't know. You know,
came from like decent upbringings type shit. You know, they definitely had a because with them they charmed a lot of their, well, to an extent, charmed a lot of their victims to lure them in to attack them.
Yeah,
right. And that's another thing that I love so much about the movie. That's just like, you almost forget about Buffalo Bill because you think of Jodie Foster, you think of Hannibal Lecter, and like Stu, you made a post earlier on Instagram. What's the actor's name? Levine? What's his first name?
Ted Levine.
Oh, Ted Levine.
Ted Levine. You're like Jodie Foster, Anthony Hopkins, Ted Levine. I'm like, who the fuck is Ted Levine? And I'm looking at the cast. I'm looking at the cast. I'm like, well, it's not Crawford. It's not those two. Like, who else would it be? And then I saw that it was him. It was Buffalo Bill. And I'm like, oh, he's an actor. It was like something about it. He just seems like they actually found a real creepy guy and put him in the movie. It's such a believable, like freakishly believable role.
It is. And then you look at like juxtaposed like to a lot of the other roles he's taken since then, where he's like a real uniform law enforcement type. You know what I mean? I think he's in Heat. He's in Heat as one of the cops in Heat. I think he's on Pacino's team as one of as one of the cops in that. He's involved in the shootout and shit like that. So it's like, yeah, it's kind of crazy. Like, but yeah, he goes someplace else in this role, man. It's fantastic.
It really does. Speaking of going someplace else, I guess the dance was improv.
Fucking iconic. Yeah.
Like, he wasn't told to tuck, which, just to put it in perspective, I think when we talked Red Dragon, I was telling you guys, like, I think I saw this movie when I was a kid, but I didn't really, it didn't really connect with me. I'm born in 83. This came out in 91. So at 8 years old, this isn't what I was looking for in my horror/thriller movies or whatever. But I was thinking today, when Jay and Silent Bob came out, would you fuck me? I'd fuck me. And they had that scene. I didn't get it. I didn't know what that was. I mean, I think I heard people say, like, oh, Silence of the Lambs. And I was like, it sure is. But I didn't, like, that's telling me now, like, oh, I definitely hadn't seen that. And then the other one, like, almost every time I hear somebody say Silence of the Lambs, I think Silence of the Lambs with Jim Carrey and Cable Guy, where he's like putting the bacon on his face and shit and talking.
Deep cut.
But I didn't get that at the time either. I was like, Jim, you're hilarious. But I definitely did not grow up with this movie. But Stu, I'm assuming since this is your pick, you've damn near picked this movie twice now, since Red Dragon and this are so fucking similar. But just like, what's your history with it? Why do you love it so much, as most people do? And how was the rewatch for you, my brother? You guys in the chat too. Let me know. Like, did you grow up watching this? Like, where do you rank this? Is this up there for you with movies from the 90s? Because I think we might have covered two of the biggest 90s movies back to back. Scream and Silence of the Lambs are the two biggest horror movies of the 90s. But Scream 2 and this, along the same lines, we're very 90s centric this month.
The franchise.
Yeah. No, it's crazy. Yeah, 91 too. Like, this was right at the top of the decade.
Right.
Yes, my experience, watched it early on, man. Watched it probably way too young. I forget the circumstances, but I just remember being hypnotized by it. like I was saying earlier, just the way it's shot, I love it. You know, you're right there in it with these characters, and it's hypnotizing. Performances are incredible, A1. And yeah, dude, it scared the shit out of me as a youngin, and it left its mark on me. And you know, it's timeless for so many reasons. But the rewatch was incredible. You know, all those, none of the, there was no dust. You know, there's no dust left on it after I picked it off the shelf. It was, everything was still golden. You know, Hopkins is just so sinister, just with a look, with a simple glance. It's really incredible what he's able to pull off in the 24 some like minutes he's only on screen.
Bro, I think it's only, I mean, unless I'm mistaken, I think it's 16 minutes.
16,
which is
incredible.
About the fewest that anybody has ever been on screen to win Best Actor award.
Yeah.
But it's also not like too weird for a villain. Like, I wonder how much Darth Vader's. Yeah, I wonder how much Vader's on screen in the first Star Wars, New Hope. Yeah. I bet
there might be something to that. Like, that's probably, I could see like there being a theme to that, because it's almost like less is more. It's because that's the like Boba Fett, for example, didn't really do fucking shit. And but he, because of that, he was like a mysterious and cool. You know, he didn't get much screen time in the OG trilogy, but he became like this cool, mysterious icon after the fact. And probably had they shown us the show after that, he probably wouldn't be as cool today. You know, because that show definitely brought his cool factor down. But you know, I think that there's something to that. Like the less is more. I wouldn't be surprised to see like Darth Vader was only in maybe like 10-15 minutes.
I'm gonna look it up. Star Wars. As we're talking, I'll look it up, because I almost did earlier. I think it's a villain thing, and honestly, like Red Dragon, he's in it. Like all the other ones, he's in it more. I think. Don't quote me on that. But I feel like definitely Red Dragon. You're like, I could do with a little less of him, and this is the best that he is out of all the ones that I've seen him play in Hannibal Lecter.
Absolutely.
I definitely
and it was like, I think it was a big turning point for Jodie Foster in her career too. Like hearing her talk, watching some of the interviews where her speak about this film and how it was kind of a reclamation for her finally being a woman who protects other women, who is the hero, you know what I mean? And is not the one who's being hunted, and all the shit that she went through in real life with John Hinckley, the dude who shot what's it called? Lennon, who was fucking obsessed with her, who said he did it for her. Like she had to go through all that shit after being in what's it called with De Niro, and like he became obsessed with her after seeing her. He saw her in that, became obsessed with her, and you know, said he shot. No, it wasn't Lennon. It was fucking. I think it was Reagan.
Reagan.
Yeah.
Was it?
Still fucked up.
I think it was Reagan. I think both of them might have been. He was blaming it on The Catcher in the Rye, too, or either that or
it was on some others. But just like you for her to have to undergo that at a young age, after all the weird shit that probably she got from men after that movie. You know what I mean?
Oh, I'm sure. But I was gonna say, because you reminded me saying that she's being hunted in this. That's another thing, like on the side of like whether it's a horror movie or not. I think the biggest thing that makes it not, because to me it kind of still isn't. Like I would still kind of lean on the side of it not being a horror movie. Not to say it's like we shouldn't be talking about it. I definitely want to talk about it. But the thing is, she's not in danger at all until the very end of the movie. And I think that's kind of the biggest thing that like is a difference between a horror movie. Think of like every single horror movie, the main character is in danger, or at least most.
What about something like The Witch?
I would say she's the main, like the family, like the main core family in that are the ones that are being at risk from what's going on. I get what you're saying. There's not like a malevolent force that's like hovering over them that's going to hurt them, but they are the ones at risk, and they, you know what I mean? They end up dying by the end. But I get what you're saying.
I feel like she is in some sort of danger though. The minute she goes and meets with Lecter, like she kind of puts herself in this world, and
she's a rookie, right? She's not even like officiated as an FBI agent, like so he's kind of preying upon that, you know.
I love that. Like I love that question, that response from Hopkins. He's like, Jack Crawford sent a trainee to me. Like he was a little pissed off.
You did a pretty good Lecter there. How about his accent, dude? How we talked about it when we did Red Dragon, but sometimes he dips into this Southern Belle kind of thing.
Man.
Like, is he joking? I feel like he's like playing around there, but then at other times, like, or is that his accent? It's very hard to pin down like what his accent is.
I kind of almost, I could see. I didn't watch the show too much, but isn't he from like Germany or some shit? Or the movie, the prequel. I think I said the movie wasn't that. The prequel it had nothing to do with like anything. It came out like 2007. It was like they're trying to reboot it. It was like a young Hannibal Lecter.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, no, I'm not sure. I'm not sure where he's supposed to be from. That's a really.
But
good point.
if he's not German, I could see him being. He reminded me kind of like a more sophisticated Kelvin Candy from Django Unchained. Because Kelvin Candy was a pretentious. He wanted to be sophisticated and intelligent, but like Anthony Hopkins is like a. I could see like this Southern twang that you guys were talking about. Like he's a sophisticated, like he almost like the vis-a-vis dude from The Matrix, Colonel Sanders, the architect.
Hannibal Lecter is a child of Lithuanian nobility and Visconti and Savora's family of Italy.
Oh shit!
I don't think that helped me very much.
I just love how he's able to use his voice almost like a weapon sometimes. Like when he gets on the phone, or as another tool of manipulation, when he gets on the phone in Red Dragon and he's able to coerce that secretary into giving him like Will Graham's information or whatever information he needs at the time to, be a devious little shit. Like, I don't know. He's, and it's just intimidating as hell. Wait, daddy was a mana. And then you found out her dad's a cop, and it's like, oh, her dad's a cop. Like you thought he was dead on because the way she almost completely got broken down that first visit, man. It's
toughens the nipples, doesn't it?
Toughens the nipples. Newer movie kind of reminded me of this. You guys probably spoke on it, but I didn't. Maybe that's why I triggered it. But Long Legs is on Hulu, and I was rewatching that a few nights ago.
Yeah, hell yeah.
And I totally, it's like a mixture of fucking Seven and Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah.
To the T, with a slight supernatural twin.
Well, exactly.
It.
It's like taking this and making it slightly supernatural. Yeah, definitely, dude. But Stu, did you have more on your overall thoughts?
No, man. Sorry. I know we kind of went all over.
I feel like I was cutting you off.
I love it though.
So don't worry about
love the rewatch.
My brother, Lynk. Now if I remember correctly, I think I remember you saying when we did Red Dragon that you had seen Silence of the Lambs and you might have been quite a bit younger, and you were like, it was cool, but you didn't get why it was like such a fucking big deal when you saw it originally. How was the rewatch for you?
It was good. It was good. I appreciate everything about this movie, but this is a movie for me that you have to kind of be in a mood for, because I don't want to call it a slow burner, but like you made a good point earlier. You really have to sit down and watch this to be invested, to get everything out of this. There's not going to be any beyond Anthony Hopkins. There's not going to be any like striking moment to be like, oh shit, what was that? Like, oh, what's going on in here? But it was fine beyond that. But it's this movie, I realized that it's like it can be I don't want to say this was a struggle watch, but I don't think I watched this in the right mood, should I say? But I love this movie. I respect everything about it. But I had a good, it was a good time. I did notice like Anthony Hopkins, he, like the fact that you guys told me that he was only in the movie for like 15 minutes, that kind of blew my mind, because he's definitely the standout to me.
12 minutes for Vader in A New Hope, by the way. I just looked it up. 12 minutes in A New Hope.
There's something to that. The less is more, man.
It is, dude.
But he's got like, one of you guys said it earlier, like this is his best performance as Hannibal Lecter, and I agree with that, because it's in Red Dragon. In this movie, he's almost seems like he's like an alien or something trying to imitate a person.
He's a reptile. He's a fucking reptile or a bird.
And how he's like, when he's looking at people, he's looking through them. He's not looking at them. He's looking through them. And I love when they introduce him, like he's just standing in the center of the jail cell. Like it's like symbolically, like it's showing you how he views everything. Like he's above the world revolves around him. He is the center of his universe. He's superior to everyone. Right. But no, just like this, I don't know, the fact that he was only in this for fucking 15 minutes and won an Oscar, like every moment, and this he utilizes to a T, because he is like, that kind of blew my mind, because I thought for sure he was in this for a lot longer based on like the lasting impression he had. But yeah,
plus
no,
it's only an hour.
like we were
It's
saying
only
earlier.
an hour. Sorry, I was just going to point out that it's only an hour and 53 minutes. And I feel like a lot of movies like this would be 2 hours and 20 minutes. And
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like if they had stretched it out and he had another fucking 5-10 minutes, you could have fallen out of love with him, and the pacing of the movie would have been ruined. For me, the pacing flies by. It feels like an hour and a half movie at an hour and 53.
That's very true.
I can see that. But no, this is I respect it for the fact that we said earlier, it's elevated. It's like I don't want to say it's the first inklings of like elevated horror, but this is the scare factor here is the fact that this is like some real shit. This is it, because it's like, it's essentially a police procedural movie. We're just going through the motions, and she, it's fucking first season of True Detective kind of reminds me of this movie loosely, but she finds herself into some heinous, crazy shit, and it's just like, man, it's just it's like the reality of it is what's like super fucking scary for me. He's just, it's not like some weirdo. Like that's how he got, like we were saying earlier, that's how he got a lot of his victims, by charming them and getting them close to letting their guard down. And it's like, shit, this dude could like live next to me. Because when the end shot, when you see him like walking off into a crowd, and he's just blending in like a regular person, like that's some real scary shit. Because it's like,
for dinner.
and was that like
a great line?
It was almost like a master plan, like, because it's like, they stopped Buffalo Bill or whatever, but it's like he's fucking freaky. He's even scarier than someone like Buffalo or whatever they do. Was it Buffalo Bill, or is that
Buffalo Bill? Yeah. Oh, he's
Buffalo Bill. Yeah, he's scarier than Buffalo Bill.
You can almost spot Buffalo Bill and his weirdness.
Yes.
Right? You might notice that Hannibal Lecter's fucking weird, but you're gonna think he's weird because he's so smart,
he's eccentric,
so above you and everything. Yeah. Yeah, definitely, dude.
Yeah,
you made me think. You said something. Oh, but just like his introduction and the way, there's a couple things. Somebody had mentioned earlier that his glass, the glass cell, the glass front to it rather than the bars, makes it creepier. Like he could just fucking come at you. And that was Anthony Hopkins' idea. They had bars originally. He talked them in like kind of last minute, I guess. Like did a rush job and brought in the glass, which is cool. The other thing that I really appreciated about this, there's a lot of great villains, they have a hype man. Like Michael Myers has Loomis, who hypes him up. He's the darkest, scariest. He's got the blackest eyes and everything. And like the shark from Jaws, you've got the fisherman guy, tells you all about how fucking scary this shark is and everything. And with this, you have Crawford, you have the FBI boss. He kind of hypes him up about how scary he is, and then you think you're about to go meet him. And it's like, no, we got to meet Dr. Chilton first, the guy that runs the prison. And then he hypes him up, tells you all about him. And then you go down to meet him, and no, we got to talk to his security guards, the people that are there. And then they kind of hype him up, and just the anticipation up to him. And then once you get down to his lair, all the lights are red and this music kicks in. And this is where I'm like, okay, this is like where they're adding the horror to it. This is an argument that I've heard before. I think on the Evolution of Horror podcast, they compare Hannibal Lecter's cell in Manhunter to his cell in this. They're like, Manhunter, pure thriller, not a horror movie. And in that, it's his pure white cell, white backdrop. He's wearing all white. It's this clinical, more realistic setting. And in this one, he's like in a dungeon, all these brick walls and like red lights and shit. And it's like, that's kind of the difference. It leans way more into the horror of it.
Absolutely, dude. I love that whole walk down and like the conversation between Chilton and Jodie Foster. Yeah, dude, the autopsy scene as well.
Yeah.
Well, just adds to the horror too.
And I love the
bodies,
and I love like the local coroners they had, and like how authentic it made that scene feel. Yeah, like sometimes when they drown, they get sticks and stuff and stuck in them or whatever. But yeah, I love the scene when Jodie Foster was walking down with Chilton and like the back and forth, and oh, you could have. I'd rather do this by myself. Oh, you could have told me that at the beginning, and like how he's a lot less receptive once he finds out that she's not romantically interested in him. He's such a prick, dude.
He plays that prick so.
Yeah, he really does. He really does.
And then
And then when she gets down there and like the guards room, and it switches to like her point of view, like looking around the room, man. She ends on the orderly. It's fantastic, dude. It really puts you there, and like I love that first shot of Lecter just standing in the cell, and like as you approach, and like all the other creatures you have to pass to get to him. You know what I mean? It's so
like
well
Arkham
done.
Asylum.
It is. Yes, bro. That's a great comparison. It really is. It's Arkham.
It's so disgusting. Like I don't know, for as mainstream as this was, like picturing
it's
like
a wild ass moment, right?
So many grandma and grandpas went in to see this and saw Jodie Foster get cum flung at her face, and she goes and talks to Hannibal Lecter, and it's like dripping off her chin.
I love it. It like turns into like a 1930s like romantic. He's like Clarice, and she like flings herself at the cell. He's like, I didn't want that to happen to you. I'm sorry.
He's like, I'll tell you one thing.
Talking like excited and all.
The music's like,
he's like, just take the test though, or answer the question. He's like, no, I won't do that.
The way he's screaming at her, Clarice, come back. Yeah, it's something very strange about that.
Might be one of the only sophisticated elevated horror movies that has a money shot at the same time. So we gotta respect that.
Manhunter better than Red Dragon, 100% Six Deuce, 100%. By the way, what up, my brother? Appreciate you being here. Six Deuce. What up? The other thing I wanted to say, Link, is another thing that you remind me of, talking about being one of the first of its kind of with a not elevated, whatever you would fucking call it. It's a thriller that leans way into more horror, that has big name actors and big production, and is like a respected Hollywood thing. I think, and I don't know, this is just off the top of my head, but I think Fatal Attraction is the thing that led us to Silence of the Lambs being made into the movie that it is. Because I think it might have been already out as a book. If not, then Manhunter definitely was. But like, Fatal Attraction it's a horror movie. Like if you watch that now, like if I watch it now, it's like, oh my God, this is basically a slasher movie and a horror movie, but it really rode those lines of thriller and erotic thriller. Then you get Basic Instinct. And then like we've talked before, like in the 90s, you got Jacob's Ladder in 1990 with Tim Robbins and just bigger actors, bigger production, Interview with the Vampire. Now you've got fucking Tom Cruise, you got Brad Pitt, like some of the biggest names in Hollywood. And this is just like, it's kind of like almost typical of the era at the time. It was one of the first handful of movies of the era that did this. And it's part of the reason why people look down on the 90s, is because it did get less sleazy. I don't know if they missed the cum flinging part, but aside from that, it's not as sleazy as a lot of the 80s stuff that we get.
Yeah, it's wild.
I want to ask you guys. I want to ask you guys. It's weird, like the way this movie functions, right? Because it's like there's not like it's a mystery, but it's not a mystery in the way that like a Scream movie is a mystery, or a Shallow. We're not trying to figure out who the killer is. We're trying to figure out why the killer is killing, and that in itself is pretty fucking cool. And like I'm trying to think of other movies like that. Like at what point in 7 do we? It's not towards the end, right? That we see that
kind of pretty much towards the end,
right?
They figure out Kevin Spacey.
I mean, it's cool though, because it's like, because I was thinking, I'm watching the movie, I'm looking for red herrings, and there isn't any of that. There's no like, oh, you're gonna put the Mr., the suspicion off on other people. It's just giving you clues as to what he's doing, and I don't think that's part of the thing. Is like I don't know if I put together many of the pieces when I first saw this. At whatever age I did see it, like I don't know if I was really like appreciating that aspect of it, of like how we're supposed to just be figuring out what the fuck this guy is doing with it. But I don't know, watching it now and reading the book and watching it now and being able to see all the pieces a little bit better, it is genius. It's like you do get all the clues that it is addressed, but I don't think most people would figure it out, right? Or that he's making the address out of humans.
But I think, like, I don't know, the fact that he's taking pieces off of him is pretty horrific, and they really bring it home when you see that girl with the 2 diamonds like cut out of her back and stuff like that. And
I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. But like, I love the shot, even though we really don't get it in full focus, of like when Jodie Foster is finally in his lair, and you finally see the suit it's like 3/4 of the way made on the mannequin. Yeah. It's really creepy and kind of like out of focus, but very effective.
Right. They should have lingered on that at one point.
Yeah,
right? Because it looked like someone put a lot of work into that.
Seriously, no, there's a cool like little behind the scenes like and then the featurette or whatever. I think for the 10th anniversary where they talk about like quilting together, like all this prosthetic skin or this fake skin. It was
Would have
wild.
been like a cool Leatherface callback too.
Right?
Squeeze that in there. See him like chasing a victim in his getup or chasing Jodie Foster at one point or something. I don't know.
Right.
But
it would have been insane. That's basically what they did in Terrifier. Art the Clown was like, "Oh, they didn't do that scene. I'll do that scene." That's a good point.
Yeah.
But to your point of this, I do feel like the overall, I still, at one point I can't really pin together when we're talking about Hector, right? And when he put his plan together to escape, and I still can't pinpoint that together. So I think it does a good job at that's why I said it earlier. It's like a procedural movie because it's like we know who the killer is, but we're just trying to figure out the motives as to how to catch this dude or watch him slip up. So the overall game plan though, with the Hannibal reveal towards the end with him he's been playing you the entire time. He thought he was helping you. I think they do a good job at pulling that off because even watching it now, I couldn't really pin together. It's like that's when he got them. That's
right.
When he,
I think the scene where he breaks out is the highlight of the movie in a lot of ways. Is the highlight of the book. I remember that for sure. I read the book when we did Red Dragon, and there's not very many differences that I can really think of. There's obviously things that they kind of dwell on a little bit more and whatnot. I'm sure there are differences, but the highlight in the book is definitely when he escapes. I feel like in this one, did you Link? When was the last time you'd seen this before today, or whenever you watched it?
It'd been a few years. Yeah.
Did you remember? Because watching it now, I feel like when you see Anthony Hopkins laying on the ground, he's pretending to be the officer, cut up. It looks too much like him. But did you notice that it was him, or had you forgot that? Did you remember, or did you not get the reveal until you get the reveal?
I knew that much that he was but shout out to that scene though, because I think X2 took a lot of inspiration from it when Magneto was making his escape from
too much iron in the blood. I don't know why I didn't try to go from my Magneto accent there. Too much iron in the blood.
But no, I I think they pull off well enough because I think they just within the canon of the universe or the movie, the story's logic, these guards, everyone's got complacent. They just expect everything to go like it's always gone, and just even little surprises like that. They don't. He's for the most part we've got it under wraps. There's no way he could have. So I think he pulled. They kind of underestimated him. And I think they were just that moment was just reinforcing why Hannibal Lecter is such a scary ass threat.
Right. When they get the final reveal, because it really builds up to that moment. They give the audience time to kind of put the pieces together by the time he pops up and rips the face off. But it looks fucking crazy. That's definitely one of the that whole set piece with him killing the guard and the blood that you get. It's one of the strongest things. That combined with the end scene with the night vision goggles is the strongest things in argument of this being a horror movie. But part of my thing with that is there are not so extreme, but every Walt Disney movie has horror scenes in them. Not but especially the older ones. Snow White has some crazy shit in it, but it doesn't make it a horror
scared
movie.
Me as a kid, bro.
Right. A couple horror scenes do not a horror movie make.
But they don't have a dude butterflied and fucking hung up
I get it.
Come on, see, bro is fully gutted.
Do you think Seven's a horror movie? Because you get a lot of the same visuals in Seven that you get in this.
Yes, Seven's a horror movie. I think just on themes,
I'd say they're in the same vein of horror movies.
They're the closest thing. Silence of the Lamb and this are the two that are closest to each other in that comparison. And it's another one that's one of those 90s big stars, Morgan Freeman, Brad Pitt, Kevin Spacey kind of things.
Yeah, if it's
have you seen Zodiac?
Not in some years. Not in some years. But I know that falls along those lines too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
right.
For me, it's I don't know. My approach to it is if it's it's more of a feeling for me. If if it's majority, like more, it's scary. It's scaring me more than anything else. Like, you know, I'm enthralled by it in a fear type sense, then, you know, it's going to qualify as horror for me. So that's why I consider it this one
Right.
horror. You know?
Right.
Here's
No,
an interesting one. Okay, so recent example. The Gorge was kind of heavily billed as like a horror movie, but I
Here
feel
we
like
go.
that's
Why
more.
you?
I think it's just an interesting one, but I
Right.
think it was more sci-fi. So I thought it was interesting that it's a sci-fi with horror elements, but they really build it as like a horror movie with sci-fi elements.
I wonder how they build this. I almost watched the trailer today, but you know what I mean? I'm not really sure how this was sold to audiences from the get-go.
I think thriller is like a more marketable like genre, or like, you know, label to slap on this. I feel like.
Right. I don't even think that term existed until around this time.
Really?
That Fatal Attraction era is when they started calling these erotic thrillers.
Now, here's the question I ask you guys. Do you think it was like time and place lightning in a bottle, in the sense that this movie still would have been good, but like I was saying earlier, this was released around the time of the Jeffrey Dahmer situation, so that was in the zeitgeist of American culture. Like, it's almost like, not really, but comparison, like Heath Ledger and Joker, like, yes, he still would have been fantastic, but I think a lot of the hype to that performance went because he passed away before this, and this rumor that this role drove him to his death. And I think more people saw that movie based off the hype of that, then, you know, that's why it shit on Batman Begins in terms of box office, because there's a lot, well, people won't admit it, but most people went to go see this iconic performance that drove this actor to his death, you know. I'm wondering if like Jeffrey Dahmer being in the zeitgeist of the culture had like an effect where it's like, because people are vicarious creatures. And they could vicariously experience like something like Jeffrey Dahmer, you know, within the confines of, you know, safety, you know, getting exposed to something like that. I mean, the movie still would have been fantastic, but I can't help but feel maybe some of the hype was tagged or, you know, associated with that.
I'm trying to look here. He was apprehended. Jeffrey Dahmer apprehended July 22nd, 1991. Silence of the Lambs released. Survey says February 14th, 1991.
That's crazy.
Interesting.
So I would say, yeah. I mean, there might have been some. So I would say no. I get exactly what you're saying. It's a great fucking point. But the dates would say no. I never really. I don't know why, because you're fucking spot on. Hannibal the cannibal and Jeffrey Dahmer the cannibal. I never really like associate them together. It happened in the same year, but you definitely have a really good point. But it appears
that's
interesting. I want to see, Jodie. I don't know, Fable, whether or not Jodie Foster.
No, she was nominated for an Oscar for a film like a year before this. I thought I saw somewhere. Somebody look it up. I thought.
Fable says, yeah, she did. She left acting to go to school. It was in a few independent movies throughout the 80s. E says, I thought this was her first big movie. Seeing as an adult and not a child actor, it could be wrong, though. That's one thing. There's a movie called The Little Girl That Lives Down the Lane that she plays. She's a kid. She doesn't play a kid. She fucking is a kid in it. It's not the greatest fucking movie in the world. It's got like a 90% on Rotten Tomato, but I don't know. There's something about it that at the end it's unsatisfying. I almost had us covered.
Yeah, she came back in '88 with the Accused. Sorry.
If you're interested in her, if you're a fan of her, if just like you want to see how good she was at like 10, 11 years old, it's crazy. She's so fucking good in that movie, and she seems like a 40-year-old woman. She's so mature as a kid, and she's kind of like that in Taxi Driver too. You can just tell she's always been like that. This is a side note, like if I can throw out there now, she's in the movie, she's like this hot chick almost, which is kind of reason why Michelle Pfeiffer might have been in some ways. I don't want to say she would have been a better pick because she won a fucking Oscar, Jodie Foster did, and she's phenomenal in the movie, but she doesn't come across to me as that hot chick, and I never thought about that. But now years later, knowing that she's a lesbian and always has been, that's why. You know what I mean? I just like knew it. Like, she doesn't come across to me as like someone that is like, I don't know. She's beautiful. She's an attractive woman, but I can just tell she's not into dudes. I just know it.
I don't know if it's
I don't think
I
don't think I saw the crystal ball of her being a lesbian in this.
I'm not saying I saw that she was a lesbian. I'm saying there's some reason why I've never been attracted to her, and I think that is why.
I don't know if it was your radar.
I think it was because I
necessarily.
saw her as a kid being a prostitute
Maybe
and
that's
taxi
probably
driver.
yeah.
That's
probably.
No, for me, I just think Jodie Foster is always kind of well, from the roles that I've seen her in, maybe she was different when she was younger, but she's always had a bit more of a tomboyishness to her.
Right.
Where Michelle Pfeiffer was always
hot,
a little bit more feminine in the roles that I'd seen. You know, this is based on, you know, first impressions leave a lasting impression. So, you know, like my first role of like Jodie Foster, I want to say it was like Contact or some shit like that, where she's like the astronaut, and, you know, she's like tough as nails kind of a little bit in that movie. And then for Michelle Pfeiffer was Catwoman, you know, like that's such a stark contrast. But, you know, Jodie Foster, I feel, is kind of even later, like in her, like in Panic Room, from like that's 20 years ago, and something more recent, like on True Detective. Yeah, like she's more of a tomboy, or has a little bit more grizzled, I guess. Where Michelle Pfeiffer, even in her later roles, was always kind of playing a little, for lack of a better term, feminine, more of a feminine role. You know,
I'm just
never
gonna
really
say,
played a badass.
I think her lesbianism has something to do with this, man. I don't know. It's okay to say. I got some lesbian friends. I'm not attracted to them either. It's totally fine.
I don't. I mean, but she to me, she had an attractiveness that was very believable in this film, though. I mean, you know, it didn't. Yeah, I mean, for sure. I think like it was like the scenes with everybody, all these different guys hitting on her. It didn't seem out of place. I definitely like.
Fair enough.
See where y'all are coming from. Like,
I was
where she ended up, but like
for me personally, physically, I've never been attracted to her in a personal, because she kind of, her face reminds me of like a Who from The Grinch a little bit, like the way, I don't know. I just don't find that sexy, you know. But you know, to each their own. But I mean, I didn't find her ugly or anything.
I've seen some hot Who's. I've seen one hot Who. If you've seen that movie, there's one that's actually kind of cute. The newer movie, which shows how old I am, because that came.
Was it the wife that had a crush on him?
Years ago. Yeah, I think so. She was kind of hot, but just a little bit. But I digress. Here's one thing for fun. Just a fun fact. Is it Deadhead Moth or Death Head Moth? Do you guys know Death? I think it's called a Death Head Moth.
Death's Head, I think.
Death's Head Moth. It's like the moth that looks like it's got the skull on it. This was back when I was doing fun facts. It was one of the fun facts that I did. But like on the cover that you see of the movie, you see the Death's Head Moth. And if you zoom in on it, it's actually like a bunch of naked women, like curled up into the ball in the shape of a skull. The Descent took that from this, and this, or they both took it from Salvador Dali, who.
Oh, no shit.
It was his idea. He had someone else create it and take the photograph, like back whenever the fuck Salvador Dali was doing his thing. And that inspired the Silence of the Lambs, and then later the Descent poster, which the Descent poster I didn't know any of that about it. It's always been one of my favorite. I think I have it. It's hanging on the wall behind me, I think. Pretty fucking sure. But it's such a great poster, and I didn't even know that it came. I didn't even know that if you zoomed in on the Silence of the Lambs poster, that you would see that it was people making up the skull. It's so cool. I wanted, just for funsies, Stu, since this was your pick, is there anything negative? I don't know that I would have an answer to this question, but just for fun, do you have like any negative criticisms or anything that you do not like about Silence of the Lambs? And then just I want to know, you guys that are in the chat, just a yes or no, horror or thriller, yes or no. Is this a horror movie to you, or is it a thriller? I want to hear from you guys down in the chat.
No, man, I really don't. I don't. Not really. I don't like. It's just I find it thoroughly enjoyable. It's always been one of my favorites. Yeah, it's just always had a special place for me. I really can't find anything I want to criticize about it.
Fair enough.
Really enjoyed the rewatch.
Fair enough. Cheel says she was kind of hot in The Accused, I believe. Hey, I can get behind that.
I don't know. I'm just saying, after Taxi Driver, it was weird to like ever picture her in that.
I had never.
And Michelle was a fox since Scarface, bro. Like
that's true. That is very true. I didn't see Scarface immediately though.
Why did Pfeiffer turn down this role again? Was too violent?
It was the same reason why Sean Connery turned down the role, because he was offered the role of Hannibal Lecter. It was just too much for him.
Too intense.
Like,
yeah.
No, thank you.
I'm saying, this was like an elevated,
really interesting. Not Sean, but Michelle. Like I would have really that would have been interesting.
It would have been interesting, wouldn't it? Because she is terrific, and she was just like what you were saying. Like, first of all, I never saw Taxi Driver. To your point, Stu, I never seen that or saw that until I did it for Robbie's channel a few years back. It was the first time watch for me. So I had never. I think this is like I don't know Jodie Foster from a lot of things. Even like looking at her list, for as big of a name as she is, I haven't seen her in too many things. Fable saying thriller to him. Two Guns saying thriller.
Yeah, it's a thriller with horror elements.
Horrific thriller has horror elements. Horrific thriller. Well, Link, I think it was you and me were doing a show a couple weeks ago and we looked up like the definition of thriller, and it was saying they're movies that go light on the gore and they rely more on anticipation and suspense. This does do both. We do get some gnarly shit. Just that fucking pierced nipple that we get them playing with is enough to veer it into the horror lane. But as far as
I think
the face off and all that, there is a lot of horror elements, more so than maybe a lot of movies that would ride that line.
I think it's a thriller with horror elements is an apt way to describe it. I mean, I do think anyone trying to describe this as a horror first is stretching a little bit. But I mean, maybe I'm not seeing it, but I don't think there's anything wrong with being a thriller with horror elements. It's still in that vein, and it's, to be honest, it was such a culture shock because if you look at the 80s, the majority of the 80s, it's a lot of like shock sleaze, and this was like like there was no in your face. You had to really watch it and be attentive to this movie to get the payoff, where everything else is kind of like money shots, So it's like, that to that credit, I kind of took what was expected of horror and flipped it on its head. But it's, so it's still horror, but it's definitely a thriller with horror elements.
And I agree with you. I still, and to me, like I'm saying, it doesn't fucking matter, but it's endlessly interesting. This is, what I mean? Like I'm always interested in, dicing up the genres and that. But as far as kind of to play devil's advocate, there's some shocking shit. Man tucks his dick between his legs and we see his pubes and he's dancing around. Don't get me wrong, that's not fucking horror. But the cum in the face, the ripping off of your face, the scene of Lecter, his cell and the blood and all that, that's all I'm saying is it goes farther than a lot of movies that ride that line, like Fatal Attraction. It's another one that I consider a horror movie. This goes farther in the movies that you're talking about that do it more on the lowbrow end. This is one of the few highbrow ones that would actually fling cum in someone's face. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I almost feel like with age, this movie kind of I feel like at the time the argument with the horror, it was stronger, but it's like with age, we've been desensitized. This is a very tame movie compared to some of the shit we'll see nowadays. So it does straddle that line. I feel you on that. It's more so than other films.
Hell yeah. SoCal,
what do y'all? Let me ask y'all this. What do y'all feel like? What do y'all feel like are some of the
I'll come back to you, Dan.
Earliest examples of elevated horror?
Ooh, well, that's the thing, my friend. If it goes all the way back, this is a random one. Invasion of the Body Snatchers from the 70s is one. That's it. Robbie, I love you, buddy. He always says Suspiria. Bro, get the fuck out of here, man. It's not fucking elevated horror. That's not what we're talking about, bro. Trust me. Like Invasion of the Body Snatchers, a big Hollywood thing, big Hollywood actors, and I mean, I've only seen it the one time, but it feels like a horror movie to me. I don't know, you guys in the chat. It's a great fucking question. I think that there's a bunch. Let me turn around and look.
Yeah.
Jaws. Carrie.
I would say something that's
hell yeah.
Carrie's elevated horror.
Absolutely.
I could see that. Something that's more like cerebral and leaves you kind of like. I'm trying to articulate this as best I can. But Carrie is a good example that, but I think it was like far and few with elevated horror back in around that era.
No, I agree. Like, I mean, I don't know if you guys would agree, but like Martin is almost along those lines. Like, you know what I mean? It's a very low budget kind of thing, but it's taking it serious. It doesn't have the budget to have the acting that we would want. Like that makes it feel elevated, but it's better than, I don't know. And that's the thing. That's like people get offended by the term elevated horror. And it's like I don't really get that. It doesn't, like, if you can't, I love Friday the fucking 13th, but if you can't look at Friday the 13th and Scream and see the difference. And a lot of people would maybe not consider Scream elevated horror, but just look at those two movies and the way it like steps up the acting and the theme and the importance of camera work and all sorts of different elements. But it's a combination of all those things. You can do Suspiria that has such attention to detail in so many different areas, but then it's just for whatever reason, it still doesn't feel like an elevated horror movie to me. I don't know. But I'm one of the very few people that like runs a horror YouTube channel that doesn't hate that fucking term. I've never heard a single person defend the term ever. But I think those people are being.
Oh, really? I didn't realize I stepped on a landmine there.
Oh, I do it all the time. But
I think it's needed. It's a needed term.
Yeah,
bro.
because
like,
I feel like it's a definitely a necessary label because some horror movies are just what they are. They're simple, like A to B, a slasher, zombie or what have you. But I think there's movies that kind of really challenge you, like all great films do, and also scare you at the same time and deliver on a lot of the hallmarks of the genre, but also, give you an elevated experience.
Right. Like I almost feel like certain. This is tough to say. But elevated horror is like they want to leave you something beyond just the kills and the scare shit. They want to have you thinking about other shit. That like 28 Days Later, that is a zombie film, but it has you thinking about like the importance of family and like the just the psychology of humans when their backs are against the wall or like the wolf, the group mentality. And speaking on different shit than just zombies eating people or attacking people. So
I think that's like. Dawn of the Dead, the original Dawn of the Dead, you could definitely say that about that. It's heavy on the themes, but there's like a shockiness to that too, but that sets it apart from like Midsommar and Hereditary. There is that A24 modern that does have like this different feel, and that what most people are talking about when they say elevated horror.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like there's something a little bit more
Fair
pretentious.
Enough. I see where you're going.
But I love those movies. I fucking love the shit out of
them. Absolutely.
I want to get to this comment from SoCal Dan says, I've always had one issue with the film. At the end, why did Starling continue into the dark basement instead of immediately exiting the house and calling for backup? Because it was 1991 and she would have had to beep Crawford.
I'm about to say, and also, dude,
beep, but I get that. She could have just backed out and went down the road and made the call. But I think like the way it's told in the book, she kind of realizes, and you can see it on film too. Like he realizes that she knows who he is, and they realize it at the same time, and she's kind of stuck there, like fuck. I need to make a split-second decision.
I love that scene, and them like she's looking around, she sees like the thread, she sees a moth land on it, and she's like, oh fuck. When she sees that moth, I love that. But dude, oh shit, what was I gonna say?
I bet it was great. I bet it was so fun.
It was so good.
Was it about my haircut?
It'll come back.
Was it about my haircut?
It looks great. Yeah. Oh, go ahead, dog. Yeah.
I had to point out to the lady, usually I have to leave and you fuck this shit up right here. She told me it's because you have a bit of a receding headline. I'm like, bitch.
Oh, damn.
Yeah. There's all these, I have to come home and I have to cut my hair after I get it cut every time. And she's like, I've been doing it on purpose. I'm like, I'm good with it. It's not that fucking receding.
It's her job to.
He said, calm down, LeBron. Calm down.
There is something I wanted to say too. Luckily, I wrote it down. Editing. Oh, speaking on the end, I love that cut and the way that it's edited. It shows
it's so great.
This house and it says where they're at. Then it cuts to the basement and it doesn't tell us that those are two different locations. This is the house in Chicago, and then now this is the scene of the basement, and Clarice is at that door. It's so good, and just their interaction. Like Buffalo Bill and Clarice, like everything about that is so. Here's my bigger issue, SoCal Dan. Why the fuck does Bill invite her in? He could have been like, no, I haven't talked to him. Fuck off. And he's like, oh, you know what? I know her brother or her son. Why don't you come in? I got the number.
Oh, was she a great big fat person?
Yeah.
I love that line.
Because he would erase suspicion by not agreeing. He was trying to like the more you try to comply or like. The less likely you're to raise flags. He was just,
Another issue, just to throw it out there, I feel like they explain it away in the book a little bit better. Like she's already out there, and if she continues her investigation after they know the identity of Buffalo Bill, it could help in like the court cases, right? The more information, the more like easier it is to send them to trial. But it is kind of weird. Like, we know exactly who it is, Clarice. We're going to arrest him right now. And she's like, okay, I'm going to continue the investigation. In the movie, they don't really mention why. She just like keeps investigating. Which, I mean, I guess it's you could put the pieces together.
No, he says something about getting more evidence on that first victim thing.
Sorry, but yes, The Exorcist is the first. Like, I should have thought of that off the top of my fucking head. And then, like Psycho, I would definitely put that in that elevated horror. I saw that. I asked AI, hey, what are the other horror movies that you would? First of all, I asked AI, give me a yes or no question. Think about it for as long as you need, because I was on Grok. So you can tell Grok to think long.
Oh, wow.
And it'll take, instead of giving you an answer right away, it'll take like a long time and really fucking think about it. Then you can click on it and you can see what it's been thinking. Really, you can learn a lot.
Oh, like the algorithm and shit.
Yeah, well, the AI will tell you like, oh, he's asking about this, so first I must do this, and then I must learn that. It's like, it's fucking endlessly interesting. But anyway, it listed like Psycho and Black Swan and a bunch of other movies that I considered horror as not horror, but it said it considered Silence of the Lambs horror for whatever that is worth. Grok 3 considered a horror, but Night of the Living Dead is another one that I thought of. It doesn't have like the good acting, but it does have the theme, just like Dawn of the Dead. It falls along that same line. Yeah, they couldn't afford the fire acting and all that, or even like the really fancy camera work.
Yeah, I love. I just wanted to shout out when Clarice is down in the basement, and she finds old girl in the pit, and she's like, she identifies her. She's like, I'm gonna get you help, and she's like, where is he? And the girl in the pit's like, how the fuck should I know?
Yeah. She's like, you bitch, you get back here, you bitch.
Don't you leave me. Don't you leave me.
I love that she calls her. That's one thing in the book that they kind of, there's a few things in the book that they just kind of highlight a little bit more. And that is like the size of these women. It's kind of not made a big deal out of it all that he's hunting larger women. In the book, it's made a bigger deal of. And then the other thing is like, no, yeah, they do. And the same thing with the little love interest, that doctor with the cross eyes that is like hitting on her.
Yeah,
there's just do that again.
A pinch more of that. There's just a pinch more of that in the book, and but then again, as I watch it today, it is all there. Oh, there's another thing.
Yeah, don't they get together in the book?
I think so. At the end, they let go for a date.
I like that little.
Was he cross-eyed in the book?
No, I don't think so. I don't know. I don't remember.
A more physically attractive man to represent him in the movie.
I agree. Like, why?
When y'all was talking about Jody, bro, it's par for the course. You know what I'm saying?
Hey,
that was me. I just don't find her particularly attractive. She looks like a who.
Sal says I like the fake out scene where the FBI are at the wrong address. It's so fucking good. It's so well done. There's a lot of movies that have done that same thing with you. Not unreliable narrator, but unreliable editor, which is, it's just fucking brilliant, man. Kind of wanted to see how Buffalo Bill would react if the girl actually killed his dog. It's another great scene. Just a cool moment to get that dog.
Tense tension.
Do you guys almost think of the dog as a bit of a villain? Like, I would feel a little bit less if she snapped that dog's neck than most dogs.
Yeah,
like he's somewhat compliant with Buffalo Bill.
No, straight
dogs aren't aware. So
I know, but I don't know why. I just have this problem. That
dog is an accessory. I thought
that was his vulnerability. That was his only vulnerability. That was symbolic of his vulnerability. His only vulnerability.
I love when they're bringing her out though, and she's got it in her arms, like she's taking it home with her. You know,
right?
I mean?
Yeah,
they got through this traumatic event together, and now they're gonna.
What do you? I think like listening to it now, and we don't got to get fucking deep into this because it's this touchy fucking it's touchy stuff. But just like listening to it now, and it's like he's a transvestite. No, he's not. He just thinks he's a transvestite. And that's why he kills. It's like, whoa, like that's pretty touchy subject these days. Like, it's basically this guy, the way that he identifies himself and the fact that it's inaccurate has caused him to be violent, which is fucking goes back to Psycho. It goes back to Dress to Kill, Sleepaway Camp. There's all these things where you're denied your identity, and it's what makes you violent. And I just wonder if this would be written now, if it how the fuck would this play? If it dropped today, it would have been torn to pieces.
Well, no, I think they handled it quite well for the era because, like, at the time, they didn't
Yes,
know,
agreed.
you know, that was like certain things now that we learn more about, you know, that they didn't, there wasn't too much knowledge on transsexuals and stuff like that. Like, I think he was more of a cross dresser. Even the Anthony Hopkins says that he's not a transsexual. So they kind of address that where it's like the FBI and everyone else wasn't knowledgeable, but there was some character within the movie who was calling it for what it was. And it's like, no, he's not a transsexual. The smartest person in the movie,
I
Anthony
think
Hopkins.
Clarice even says like transsexuals are non-violent people. Like they in the book does the same thing. They go out of their way to not villainize transsexuals, but they didn't know that there was going to be whole batches of human beings that identify as something that some people might not identify them as. You know, like I'll just say like non-binary people. He thinks he's this, but he's not. It's like, well, nowadays you can't even like comment on how someone else like no, you can, but it's rude to comment on how someone else identifies themselves, and to say that them misidentifying themselves would cause them to be violent is, I don't know, it's just interesting the way it played then, and I don't think that this book would play the same way or the movie would.
No, it definitely played good. Go ahead.
Nowadays, as long as it's explored respectfully, I don't think anybody has a problem with it, you know. But it's, you know, it's like, because I think that scene where it's like, you know, you got Anthony Hopkins and Clarice acknowledging that just because this is what the FBI is labeling this dude, you know, there are people within who understand that this isn't what it is. But as long as you know, I don't think it was I don't think it was done distastefully.
No,
you know?
I don't think
it definitely, yeah. Like, and that's the thing. I think, you know, some of these things you look back in hindsight and they're really rough, you know, like they didn't age well. But this one, you can see like Lynk was saying, you can see the care and like the effort they gave to kind of like, you know, it's weird though. I heard Ted Levine say he didn't see this character as like conflicted like that at all. He saw him as somebody who dressed up as like women or something like that to mock them or something. I don't know. It felt like very like off base to what we saw and was kind of portrayed on screen. It felt weird.
Interesting.
It seemed like
the
weird
cross-dressing
thing
gets a weird label from what I've get. Like, you know, there'd be married men that like to cross-dress on the weekends and stuff like that.
Totally,
and they got families and all this stuff, so it has nothing to do with like, I mean, I guess it does. Sexuality is a spectrum, you know.
There are. Yeah, we don't get too fucking deep in it because none of us are experts. But I've heard a distinction too. There's people that there's nothing sexual about it. It's just they like to dress up, whatever. So what's next? The crying game? Laugh my ass off. I'll be honest. I don't understand that reference. I don't know the crying game. I don't.
That's the one with Forrest Whitaker, right?
I don't know. I've heard of it. I've definitely fucking heard of it, but I don't, off the top of my head, I can't think of
I'm in the same boat.
What it is. But having said all that, fucking great conversation. But the Lakers game starting in about 20 minutes. I gotta get my shit together.
There it is.
And I gotta put my kid to bed. She's with her mom. She's with her mom right now, so she's fine. Don't worry about her. What did I wanted to say something though. Oh, I love what it was. Let's rate. Here's the only issue, not even an issue, but it's like, I guess it does bug me a little bit how similar it is. Two things. How similar it is to Red Dragon. It really does feel like a remake. Like Thomas Harris wrote the book. Whatever the fuck that book was. Oh, the book was called Red Dragon. Manhunter. And it's all about, there's this serial killer that his whole thing is about transforming into something else. And then we get a Buffalo Bill who is like, his whole thing is about transformation. It's the same fucking thing. And we got to go to Hannibal Lecter. Hannibal Lecter's in the cell, but he knows about this guy. But the way it adds to it with Hannibal's escape, that's the biggest difference. And it's why he's so cool. I remember hearing this before about the Joker, Heath Ledger's Joker, which we talked about earlier, and Vader. Like part of the reason why the two biggest villains ever, along with Hannibal Lecter, is because they actually do shit. There's so many villains that are just in a room giving orders and other people are doing shit the whole movie. But the Joker, you see him out there building up hospitals and burning piles of money and fucking doing all the shit that he does in the movie. And in this, because we get that from Hannibal Lecter, the scene where he breaks out, like elevates him a shitload. Oh, I feel like there was another thing I was going to say, but we got to rate this bitch. We got to rate this thing. Stu, say whatever brilliant shit you were just about to say, and then give me your rating.
I just want to say I love the Hannibal escape scene. Just for the the cage they put him in, like, you know, it's like one of those cages, like they stage a lion versus a bear fight in the 1930s. It's so ridiculous, but it's so cinematic and theatrical. I'm gonna go 5 out of 5, man. It's a classic, perfect for me. I love it. Love every element of it. It's a joy to watch. One of my favorite films of all time. One of those first films that really kind of scared the shit out of me as a kid. So
hell yeah,
always
I
has special
fucking
place.
love it. Do you remember how old you were when you first saw it?
I don't, man, but it wasn't too long after, you know, I didn't see it in theaters or anything like that, but it wasn't too long after, you know, it was everywhere after on syndication and shit like that, I feel like. So
I don't know why I never saw it. I might have been in like my 20s before I first saw it. Like I honestly, I might have been in my 30s. I'm really not sure.
I was
13. Hell yeah. You guys in the chat too. Let me know your rating out of 5.
No, okay. Yeah, I saw it when I was 13. I went to visit family in Chicago, and like for winter break of like 2001, and Hannibal was coming out around the time. I remember my dad and my uncles talking about, yo, have you seen Hannibal? I'm like, yo, what's Hannibal? Like a sequel to this movie called Silence of the Lambs. I was like, oh shit, I got to get down on that. But I wasn't able to see each of these movies until they came out. Like Stars used to be like, you know, they do the Friday premiere. And like, I remember Hannibal was coming out. And so they were showing like Silence of the Lambs leading up to that. So that was like, so when I finally saw it, I was like, you know, I don't know. Maybe it's because like hearing my dad and my uncles talk about it, I thought it was going to be like this way, like this dude, he likes to, you know, he cuts people up and eats them. You know, I'm thinking it's going to be intense, and it wasn't that. You know, at 13, I was like, bro, you know, where's the edge at?
It's not a movie for a 13-year-old kid.
Like, no.
I don't think so, at least. Unless you're
not at all.
A fucking genius or whatever. 4.75 from my man Sal.
And you know what? Following that up, I was right there with him. I'm at 4.75. I love and admire a lot about this movie, but this can, I think, I can't just pop this on and appreciate it at any time, you know?
I feel that. It's a good Sunday afternoon movie, I think.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like that almost sounds like it's a discredit to it.
It's a good in the dark movie, too.
It is, bro. But it's also like something like a rainy day, a rainy Sunday.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like something about like it works well in the day. I watched it today during the day, so that's maybe partially why I'm saying it. A 4 from my brother Two Gun Pedro, 4.69 from my man Fable. It's a 5, says Six Deuce. The whole thing is connected, and there's no wasted time. I agree with that. I mean, I agree with all that shit. It's so like, to me, it just flies by. For an hour and 53-minute movie, it really cooks. But at the same time, Link, tell me if you would agree with this, because I feel like it kind of would go along with your review. As good as I think it is, and I'll just say, no, I'm going to give it a 5 because I think it's fucking, you know, it's kind of like perfect, but it's not super eventful, right? You know what I mean? It's not slow, but it's not like super eventful, but it's not uneventful. Do you guys like kind of agree with that?
Very true.
Okay. And
this is a slow burner. That's what I'm saying. Like, you know, not everybody is going to be
punctuated by these violent outbursts. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's how it pulls up. That's how, to me, like how it reaches that 5 level is because I'm never bored during the slow parts. It's always interesting. It's always cool. It's always cruising along. And then when it does punctuate it with the horror, it punctuates the fuck out of it. It hits it with the exclamation mark. Yeah. So I think that's why it's so good. This is something I want to ask you guys. And I don't know if you guys have seen Manhunter, but maybe you guys in the chat. Is this the greatest sequel of all time? Is this a sequel? I would say it like the book is a sequel. The book is a sequel to Red Dragon, but because it's like different directors, different actors, they're not even acknowledging each other. It doesn't, right? Yeah. I agree. Can't call it a sequel. I think you could get like on a technicality. You could call it a sequel because
I guess
it continues the story of those characters and shit, but it's treated so differently and it doesn't acknowledge it that it's not.
But it's just so many. I think you got 2 films that you got epic directors and performances and that are, you know, have all different great elements. You know, I feel like it's kind of a disservice to them both to try to.
We covered that 62.
Yeah, we did it. We can always do it again. Let's do it one more time. Bam. Did it again. Two Guns saying I can agree with that statement, Verno. I'm just going to assume it's every statement I've made this entire time. Right? Is that what you meant? Okay, to wrap this bitch up, I'm gonna give it a 5. Stu gave it a 5, a 4.75 from my brother Lynk. And I'll say a really similar thing like it was to Scream 2 last week. And I enjoyed that a little bit better than everybody, panel and fucking chat included. But it was the same thing where I think I said last week that I hadn't seen this movie since I read the book. And then as soon as the show got over, I'm like, oh no, I did watch this when we did Red Dragon 2. So I had just seen it like 4 months ago. So once I said I wasn't really looking forward to watching it again because I just fucking seen the thing. As soon as it started, I'm just like wrapped up in it and highly entertaining. It is a movie I could watch this once a year. Like it's that type of movie. I think it's that like clean. There's no like fluff. There's nothing I don't like about the movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
But hell yeah, man. Let's wrap this bitch up. Appreciate you guys in the chat. You guys have been fantastic.
Yeah, man. Thanks, chat. Appreciate y'all.
Same as the panel, man. Appreciate you guys as well. March motherfucking Madness, man. It kicks off on Monday, man. I'm gonna be on Pop Culture Philosophers. I'll be on Pop Culture Philosophers Monday night for Lizard and a Woman's Skin, which is Lucio Fulci's one of his giallo movies that he made.
That looks wild as fuck, bro.
This is like 72. I can't remember it. I've seen it.
I love that art right there. That's so or whatever they did.
Yeah. So we're doing that. Lucio Fulci, kind of compared to what we're gonna do on Thursday. Lizard and a Woman's Skin is tame. House by the Cemetery, buck fucking wild. You did the Beyond, right, on PCP, Stu?
Yes, sir. From Beyond.
The Beyond. With Fulci. I'm pretty sure you did for horror.
I think I did. Yeah.
It's very much along those lines. I've seen this movie like 3 or 4 times. I could not tell you what this movie's about. I don't know. I don't think anybody knows what this movie's about. It's just this wild Fulci movie. When you watch it, don't try to follow it. Just enjoy the set pieces, enjoy the atmosphere, enjoy the music. Don't worry about the plot. Just enjoy yourself. So that's next Thursday here on Blood Splatter Chatter. Then I said Monday, Lizard and Woman's Skin on PCP. And then this is the entire March Madness lineup be going on Pop Culture Philosophers here on Blood Splatter Chatter, Dylan's Horror Show. And then joining us is Fable, my brother, which I'll be doing Fight Club with him over there. That's on One Collection Down. Make sure you're subbed up to all of them and sub up to at Dr. Doom's fan club as well. Tell him about it. Tell him about it, Stu.
Yeah, man. Ink and Insights every Wednesday night. Me and my boy E from 9-Panel Grid talking our favorite new releases from Marvel, DC, Image, and the Indies. I had the Dr. Doom's Omnibus review on Tuesday night with John's Comics with Kids. We're going over the Book of Doom.
Yeah, man. I love John, man. John's one of the best guys. One of the best guys in the comic book community. He's one of my favorites, dude.
Big facts. Then Surrounded by Short Boxes is my kind of bi-weekly, so we'll call it series. I'm trying to get it to weekly. Time's been a motherfucker lately. But yeah, I just dropped a recent episode, Batman #5. From Snyder and Capullo's run, so check me out. Just going over my favorite back issues from the personal collection and what I love about them so much. Thank y'all for again humoring me watching this one. Love this discussion, fellow. I appreciate it.
It's fantastic. It was a great pick and a seriously fantastic conversation. Yeah, man. And I appreciate, as always, my brother from another, the Missing Link, being here. You got anything special going on, my dude?
No. Anytime I pop up, it's special, but nothing. I'll be around here on the interwebs.
That's what I'm talking about. What's your IG handle at @missinglink_comics?
Yes.
Bam.
Come see some cool comics.
Fucking nailed it. Yeah, hell yeah, man. And then again, Monday night, Pop Culture Philosophers. Be there, be square. Lizard and a Woman's Skin. Followed up on Thursday, House by the Cemetery. And then what? Let's see. What's Fable got going on? Fable's doing fucking Flatliners. Classic. Kevin Bacon, right? Kevin Bacon? Kiefer Sutherland? Julia Roberts, I believe. All those. And then fucking Dylan's kicking it off with Jacob's Ladder. Great idea, Dylan. I could not have thought of a better movie to do for March Madness, Dylan. We did it last year. But I love you. I love you regardless, Dylan. All right, we're going to get up out this bitch, and we will see you guys on the flip side as soon as I find this button. Found it.
Later, y'all.
How have we not done that? How have we not? Now we did it.